After we got the clay wrapped up, went ahead and put a little bit of cardboard on the stone and a little more tape just to protect the shape carved sandblast stuff, because there's a lot of very fine elements that are just too dangerous that are right in here on each side. Then I went ahead and laid out my center lines, vertical and horizontal, and this is because it's an oval, because it's a dove, there really aren't any horizontal or vertical axes that are absolute. It's not like I've got a straight edge like there's a cross or something. So if it's not exactly perfect above the joint or square to the joint, it's not as much of an issue. The thing we had to remember, it's important, was the offset, because remember, this cloud detail has a center feature right in here at the bottom of this panel where the name is, and this is off center by about 3/16 of an inch. So I've got my center line, and then I marked the center line of the niche that we laid out beforehand with this tape. That's why I like having the tape on there, because it gives me something that's not going to move as easily as this grease pencil line or wax pencil line, this crayon line. So we got that offset just a little bit, lined up, that's centered within this niche, this space. I got to make patterns for the sides here, and we'll keep going. I've got a piece of cardboard, cardstock, just, you know, a thin cardboard box, not corrugated, and it's just scrap. You save all these boxes. I'm going to trim this off just because I want to. I don't have to, but because this oval is 8 inches by 10 inches, I have to have 4 inches of dimension this way, and I have to have 5 inches of dimensions that way. And so this one will easily do that. So I'll trim this off to square it up, and then I'll just eyeball an oval on it. And I could use 2 pins and a string or all kinds of calculations, or have a pattern. This is a quick pattern for a quick job. I may save this paper pattern and find a piece of scrap tin and put this same oval pattern into tin, pop a hole in it, and hang it up on the wall right over there with all those other patterns that are hanging around from years ago that every once in a while you need one. And so when you've got a piece of scrap tin that's small, you use it, and it's one more thing you're not throwing away. So I'll take a razor knife, strip this off, lay it out, and cut it. There's a pattern. So just cut it out quick. Now, I was asked about this, you know, and how accurate and everything. Realistically, I'm going to cut this pattern into the stone. I had to lay out the pattern, cut it by hand, lay it in the stone, cut it by hand, and then carve the whole stone. And so by the time you cut it 2 or 3 times by hand, you're probably going to have some variation. But it goes from the 5-inch dimension to the 4-inch dimension really well. And then we'll reciprocate this, flip it to the other side, and then do the upper 2 quadrants as well. And so I'm going to put a little bit of duct tape on here so I can lay this on, and then I can cut it, and then as I'm working I can cut through the duct tape and have that duct tape here to help be a little more durable pattern as I'm starting this out. You don't have to do it, but I like to do it in order to have a better transition here, because when you screw this up, what's going to happen is you're going to have a problem here or here, and you'll end up digging it and making it a hump, and you'll have to carry this over a little bit more. So if you can resist that, you get a more durable pattern having that stencil on there. And in this case, instead of it being a rubber stencil, it's just duct tape. That just works well for what I'm doing. So we'll put a little more duct tape, and then, like I said, after we get done, I'll put this aside. I'll mark it's a 4x5 oval or 8x10 oval with 4x5 sides, and then we'll punch a hole, make a pattern, and hang it up on the wall. So we've got it for that next job that comes in that may never come in. Pattern's laid on, marked out, and I'll trim it, and should work well. Now that this is all scuffed up, I just broke the polish and axed it a little bit. And then I cut the perimeter, not quite to the tape, because I'll end up pushing it back and evening this all out so it's nice and round and a very smooth surface. Went ahead and did the easy way, put strings on, so I've got quadrants approximately, and then transferred the sketch onto the stone. Now things like the tail are going to look odd because your mind understands that this is deep and this is tipped. So you've got the length that makes it appropriate because you can see, you've got binocular vision, you can see in 3 dimensions. This is flat. So because there's no depth here, it shortens the tail up, and that tail's going to look weird until we sink this, get some depth to find the length to make the tail feathers the right way. That's one of the tricks when you start laying this out, is that some of these things are going to look like they're in a weird place or that the length is wrong. If you could put a plane of glass over this top and trace it, you'd find out that you'd be way more close to what this looks like. So now we're going to start carving it. Going to knock out the top, leave this till last so we can develop the beak, have it where we want and have plenty of support. But I'll open this up, get rid of some of this material to get the niche started, probably push it into about 1 inch. And maybe a little bit deeper. This is 1.5 inches. I don't know if I'll go quite that deep, but it'll be close. So just hang out and watch the carving. Been working on the niche. Decided to stand the stone up. Die's a little long, so it's pretty hard to bend over and reach it from the sides. So once I got the niche opened up a little bit, I went ahead and stood it up. Just over 1 inch deep. It'll probably finish out close to 1.25 inches, and which is basically what the clay is. And I've just done some shaping. Still have to, pull the lines back because this is all heavy, but working the contours in, and it's coming pretty good. It should be a lot of detail, a lot of depth, and it should be really good shadow because, of course, the perspective is going to be from above here. So working on it, standing up, and it's going pretty fast. We'll keep working, come back in a few minutes, in a little bit, and see how it looks. Okay, let's talk about this stone just a little bit. Got it wrapped up. Didn't have a lot of in-progress video on this stone. They go so fast, it's really hard to stop. You'll spend more time stopping the videotape than you will actually carving it. So got it pretty well done. It's pretty close to the clay. It's not perfect, doesn't have to be. It's very much like the original drawn artwork that they sent, and then it goes in the same direction of the clay. You kind of want to meet in the middle and improve it. This is about 1.25 inches deep. It's almost as deep as the clay. See how the light looks here, and gives you a little better perspective of the actual carving. Did a little bit of texturing on the body to simulate the fletching, and the niche is smoothed out and just axed. You can see it's centered pretty well into the cloud detail because this is where I wanted it to match. And having all the padding, shielding, cover, mask, whatever you want to call it on, really helps in 2 ways. Having that oval masked off in the tape really gives you a nice foundation because it doesn't move. These lines can wipe off and you can cut the edge and just go for it, but it's always nice to have that little extra so you really have a good place to catch up. If you happen to have something chipped, like you can see right here, there's a pretty big crystal on the edge. It held fine, but sometimes something like that will open up, and then you'll have to open it up, and it's best if you've got the mask, you can match how far you go on one side to the other. Ovals are kind of tricky to keep them balanced and round. The other thing are these little tiny details. I mean, they make the beak look massive, that are so fragile, and it only takes one little bump of a tool or even the end of the suction could bump it and break it right off. So having those matched up till the end just makes sense. So we'll set this down and wash it, give the retailer a call and tell them it's ready to go. So okay, did just a little bit more on the Dove. Customer retailer wanted the beak shortened just a little bit, and so did that, and then did the detail a little more like the picture of a real dove. They really didn't have a set idea in mind. They weren't necessarily that's not a dove's beak. That is a dove's beak with sort of the puffy cheeks looking, and the curl of the neck, and then there's a mourning dove. And they wanted it a little bit shorter, so beak's a little bit shorter, but that's wrapped up. Now it's just time to set this dove down, and there's natural light. Came out pretty well, pretty happy with it, and we'll set it down and wash it tomorrow, and they'll pick it up, I think, the day after, and it'll head up to North Carolina. Stone's all wrapped up. I washed it. Talked about this in some of the other videos. After you carve a stone like this, a lot of times if you've had any sandblast, you use a rubber template, and I put some cardboard on here and taped it on. You'll have a little bit of glue left on the stone from the adhesive, so you have to use a solvent to dissolve it. Then you have to wash it off with soap and water. And then I finish it with an acid wash. We use a stone acid. Now you can't use this on marble, but on granite, granite's very stable. And it really cleans everything up, makes it pop. And the bigger thing that it does that's really important in terms of carving is if I happen to rub the edge of a chisel, the steel portion of a chisel, on this, it'll leave a little bit of iron and it'll rust when it gets wet. And so you have to wash all that off. Get rid of a little bit of the brazen rod that the chisels are built with as well. But it'll clean everything up, make it pop, give you a nice uniform color. And this stone's all wrapped up. Wait for the retailer to show up, pick it up, in a couple hours, and it'll head off to the cemetery. So once again, my name's Clint Button here at Carolina Sculpture Studio, doing a little quick, simple dove job, about 1 1/4 inch in relief and an 8 by 10 niche. All freehand carved direct. Just looked at it and carved it. So thanks for coming in.